Welcome back. Yes, indeed. Let's bring you this developing story. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency informs us that preliminary report on the building collapse at 13 Wilson and Bass Street, Arojobe Estate, Maryland, in Lagos, which happened this morning. Now, the agency said they responded to the incident and discovered that a set of 3 terraces that were under construction had collapsed. Search and rescue operations began, according to them, immediately. 3 men were recovered dead. 2 were rescued alive. One person is trapped under the rubble, and then the person was eventually rescued alive, thankfully. And they say it was by themselves, LASEMA, and the Lagos State Fire Service. But at the moment, they say all six site workers are receiving pre-hospital care on location, while it's the SEMU, they've been contacted for the remains of the 3 fatalities. Asama goes on to say that a combined team of agency personnel, fire service, and Nigeria police are working at the scene. And so we'll get you more details on this matter as we get them. So building has collapsed in Lagos, in Maryland area. Unfortunately, 3 people have died as a result of that one.
A really terrible story, Chamberlain. 3 people dead in circumstances that are totally avoidable. Thankfully, 2 people are alive. 1 person was rescued from under the rubble, from what we understand, and they're currently receiving...
It wasn't just ACN at the time, too, but when he eventually changed to, the DNA was still there. Former President Buhari, which he served under, himself, Chief BC Akonde, at the time, they all marched to INEC in protest as well at the time. I think it had to do with the Anambra governorship elections at that time, too. So they also went out there and protested, and nobody batted an eyelid. Yes, government was concerned, but they still went out there and protested.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see, you know, some of the, if we are looking at it from the point of view of the political divide, it will be interesting to see some of the political leaders, you know, or people that have public interest to come out and say that, look, okay, you know, this is we are behind this, and we are going to do this.
Atiku has backed it,
and it is within, you know, I don't know whether Vice President Atiku is even in the country as we speak. I don't know, you know, and I don't say that, you know, in any way just to say that. Well, look, if Atiku comes out, for instance, let's say that if Atiku says that yes, I'm going to be part of this protest, then the protest begins to gather credibility. Very simple, because we can then say that, okay, we know this guy, we know this. If the folks in LP, the folks in PDP, or some of their friends, or their...
There's another interesting one. Okay. They just informed, let's see if we can listen to that. I think it's quite interesting.
Today, now the first warning signal to INEC as an institution. They do not represent the interests of Nigerians. They are all compromised electoral officers. They have committed many criminal offenses by rigging elections against Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, so
I suppose the president then, now, but that was him then.
Absolutely. So and that's the point. I don't think that the president himself, you know, or any reasonable member of his government will ever come out to say that people don't have the right to protest. You know, I mean, that would be completely absurd, you know, knowing the pedigree of the president, just like we saw the president. You know, I think somebody even said that the president is the father of protesters in Nigeria. So clearly, you know, the right of the Nigerian people to protest at any given time, you know, is fundamental. And I think even the law provides for the police, you know, to guide, you know, and protect people that are protesting, you know. So I don't have any problem with that. The issue that we have to, and it's important to talk about this so that we can avoid, you know, the ethnic dimension, you know, and what might be the ethnic targeting. Because once people are talking, and the boss is very loud in the social media. It's very loud that, oh, okay, some people want to attack this place, some people think, and this was what happened the last time they destroyed this, they didn't destroy that. We don't want that.
Do you think it's propaganda, though? Some people will say, look, those who do not want it will begin to spin anything to, try and turn what was supposed to be a legitimate protest on its head to whip up sentiment. And that is the sort of thing that will now begin to make people withdraw, or to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, or to say, oh, is that the original plan? So do you think that this could be propaganda that has been fed into the entire discourse of the protest just to, whip up sentiments?
Well, so there's no way that we can dismiss that. We don't know whether that is actually the case. But what we know is that there is evidence in the past, that certain properties were destroyed, and it will seem as if there were some deliberate attempt to destroy certain infrastructure, destroy certain properties, and the claims that certain people were left out is also there. I haven't checked that. So my point is that, yes, somebody might have...
It's interesting you say you haven't checked that, because, I mean, I remember the NSAS protest. They happened at the Lekki toll gate, and then remember I was there for days peacefully.
Yeah.
That protest was largely peaceful until the night when soldiers, every time people talk about how the NSAS protest was, became disheveled and caused chaos after a while. It did not happen immediately. Something happened. Events led to it becoming chaotic.
Right.
So after it became chaotic, and it would seem that there were just random attacks.
Right.
What it appeared to the ordinary eye was that these were people who had just gone berserk, and it wasn't just in Lagos. That berserkness affected many other parts of the country, even as far as the northern parts of Nigeria, which largely did not take part in the NSAS protest. So when these allegations come up that, certain properties were targeted, yes, we know that establishments were targeted,
right.
Political establishments that were thought to belong to, political people, but largely it would seem that the rampage was just random, so to speak, unless, of course, government officials at that time knew something and we did not.
All of these things are clearly possibilities that, yes, we had a decent protest up to a point. It went berserk, and when it went berserk, there were unpremeditated attacks, and there were premeditated attacks.
So
in the mix.
That cannot be ruled out.
Yeah,
but
that's
generally, because we saw businesses, generally, is it in Surulere, is it in Lekki? We saw international businesses, ShopRite, for instance, were looted in almost every place that we saw. So it would seem that the destruction and the general wanton looting that followed that particular protest was general in nature.
The other thing,
do you think that, well, we cannot rule out people who use the opportunity to now start to target, but to say that...
And there was narrative at that time that was going out, saying that should happen. If you remember, there were narratives during that time to say, go and bomb this, go and destroy this. We were hearing it in the social media, that showed that there might have been some targeted onslaught on particular infrastructure. So everything is possible in a state of anarchy. I think the other thing that we have to also say is that, so if you have a protest, you have a fundamental human rights to say that, look, I don't like this has to stop. But when you begin to say, when you want to use a protest to change a government, now that is against the Constitution, it's against the law, because the law says that this is how government is changed. There's an election every 4 years, and once, within our system, regardless of the problems, that once somebody emerges as governor or president or senator, they have 4 years. The only way to remove them is through an impeachment or resignation or death. So if we are going to have a protest that we say, sack the government, we want the government sacked. I guess to the extent that you have freedom of speech, you can say that. But also, the people who are involved also have the right to say, no, I have the mandate, I have a constitutional legal mandate to be here for 4 years. So that is also something, a contention that we have to also discuss openly.
I know that my colleague Ayo is willing to get into this. Let me quickly let him in. Yeah. Otherwise, I would be on to the end. Ayo, please.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's actually an interesting conversation that we're having. And it's even a good thing that, we are all, in the media having practiced for long enough to know the issues that are arising. But, Mr. Akonde, the question that I would like to begin with, in this conversation is, have we learned anything from previous similar, protests? I'm asking that because Chamberlain and Malquer there, showed us some things that happened in our past, and not too long ago, less than 10 years, no, a little over 10 years, 12 years ago, actually. But then before that, we have had quite a number of protests, similar protests in the 90s, some even in the 80s, the Ali Must Go protest and all of that. And some of those issues, it will seem like they still subsist until now. Have we learned anything, both as a people who react and as governments who are the reason why people protest? Have we learned anything?
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for that question. The sad reality is that the Nigerian political elite, and this is the point that we've been making over and over again, and we have to make again. It seems that our leaders are tone deaf there. It's as if they don't understand what is going on. And we have said it, there is too much insensitivity. The people in government, they are not demonstrating enough empathy. They are not showing that they too, they are part of the struggles and the hardship. They are living on as if, it's just business as usual. So to that extent, it would seem that the political elite have not learned the lesson. We have said it. Is it the time for you to buy 150 million naira worth of SUVs for about 400 legislators in a time like this when people are suffering? Is it a time to spend 27 billion naira to build for the vice president a new house? I mean, there are a lot of things. The president did say that, yes, I'm going to cut the travel expenses. Since he said it, we've not had any report of, okay, this is how much we have saved. It is important to carry people along. And this kind of hue for protest, they are just symptomatic of the kind of suffering and the frustration of the people. So the behavior of the political elite does not reflect the reality on the ground in Nigeria. It does not reflect the state of the nation in terms of the difficulties that the regular average Nigerian is going through. And so government leaders, political elite must begin to show that, look, we understand what is going on. These are the sacrifices that we are also prepared and ready to make, just like you guys out there are making sacrifices. Look, this is also what we are doing. This is not time for any kind of excessive spending.
Well, Ali Must Go, the Ali Must Go protest was 46 years ago, 1978 to be precise. And of course, you don't know what it was about. Right. It was about the increase in school fees, increase in some fees in school. And a similar thing happened just last week, if you remember, that the University of Ibadan students were protesting that, some measures were being taken that was not satisfactory to them. Of course, somehow, that was quickly quelled. But now, we're still having the same issues. In the 90s, it was more of political protests all over the place. Now, you said that government officials need to learn. 46 years ago, the people who were in government are not the ones in government today. So something must be fundamentally wrong if what we discussed last year, in the past 46 years of the protests of 46 years ago are still similar. The issues are still similar to what we are talking about today. Part of the protest of 1978 was high cost of living. And this is what this one is about as well. So something is fundamentally wrong, Mr. Akonde, and I don't think it really does have to do with what exactly do you think is going on here?
Well, so yes, to an extent, I think there is also a cultural and systemic attitude, within our social milieu. It's a cultural and systemic attitude that doesn't distinguish between or that shows a different kind of behavior when people are outside and when people are inside, and we have to deal with that. So it's a cultural thing, and that's why we're saying that. Look, what is important to all of us is that let us have. Some people have called it an elite consensus to say that, look, this is the minimum that any government, local, state, and federal ought to go. Okay. And when that benchmark is not there, we call them out.
All right.
Regardless of our political differences, our religious differences, or our ethnic differences.
We have a few minutes for this question and some feedback as well. So let's see if we can do this in 1 minute. It's about Dangote Refinery. Let me add this to perhaps the response that you might want to give previously about it. Now, we understand they say that the former president executed 7 forward sale agreements.
Right.
They borrowed money and then used crude for repayments. And then they say that, for instance, the loan agreement that the current president took from Afrexim Bank, $3.3 billion. And they say that the crude oil commitments for that one was about 11.58% interest at 90,000 barrels per day. And so when some did all the calculation and breakdown, they said, look, if you look at all those deductions, Nigeria has about 200,000 barrels per day from NNPCL. Dangote Refinery needs way more than 650,000 barrels per day. And so the big question is, does NNPC actually have that crude oil to give to Dangote Refinery?
Yeah, so in the analysis of things as they are now, if we are to take the information that we have as the fact, apparently something has to give, and I think this point has been made for long now. And somebody came up with the idea, I think it is worth considering, that, hey, maybe you give the man or the other people that have the refineries, maybe you give them some rights to lift them a oil block, so that they can lift their home crude. Okay. And then, because we do have, by the grace of God, those blessings in this country. All
right, we're still going to dissect this much further, but we have to thank you for coming on this morning, Dalo Akonde, former presidential aide. Do we have time for some feedback?
Well, let's quickly see. We have this one from Jesus for the Street. Nigeria has a lifetime opportunity to end Kabbalism. Kabbalism once and for all now. For the more challenging the conditions, the more marvelous the opportunities too. I encourage Nigerians to take the protest to NNPCL and NMDPRA, the heart of our problems since the 1970s. And he says, Ireo.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go.
We have so many more, but sadly, that's all the time we have, Chamberlain, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think we'll make time to take them tomorrow, so it's not lost on us. Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you for watching. Have a blessed Thursday. I'm Mal Pelgrim, yourself.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a productive one.